Welcome to the deep dive. And, on this Mother's Day, just a quick shout out to all of the amazing mothers out there, especially those working in the cyber world.
Absolutely, a very important group. So today we're really digging into a whole bunch of recent cybersecurity news, different reports, trying to piece together what's actually happening right now.
Yeah, we've got quite a mix. Articles on specific ransomware groups, these big law enforcement takedowns, and even analyses on emerging stuff like AI crime.
Right. And our goal here, our sort of mission, is to boil all that down, pull out the key info, maybe some surprising facts, and just help you get a clear picture of the trends without getting totally bogged down in the jargon.
Exactly. Okay, so let's get into it. But first, just a quick thank you to our sponsor, www.breached.company.
Okay, so diving in. One thing that's really loud and clear across, well, pretty much everything we looked at is ransomware. It's still a massive threat.
Still top of the list, huh? And it's not like just one thing either. This ransomware as a service model, RAS, you see it everywhere.
Oh, definitely. Groups like Black Cattle PHV, Phobos, 8base, Lockbit before the takedown, Clop. They build a malware, and then others, affiliates, use it.
It's like a criminal franchise model, basically.
Exactly. And their tactics, they've gotten nastier. It's not just encryption anymore. Now it's double extortion. Steal the data first and then encrypt, threaten to leak it.
Right, the public shaming aspect.
Yeah. And some even go for triple extortion, adding DDoS attacks on top just to pile on the pressure, disrupting services too.
And you mentioned Lockbit's takedown earlier this year. It seems like that didn't exactly reduce the overall problem.
Well, it sort of shifted things. We're seeing maybe more groups, but they're smaller. Names like Ransom Hub, Fog, Lynx popping up. It's fragmented the landscape.
So taking down the big fish means lots of little fish swim out.
That's a pretty good analogy, yeah. Disrupting the big operations is a win, no doubt.
Yeah.
But the RAS structure just lets these smaller players regenerate quickly. They might even try to stay under the radar more easily.
Okay, let's zoom in on one of those major players, then Black Cat or ALPHV. They popped up late 2021, right? And had links to older groups.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The FBI points to connections with DarkSide and Black Matter for a lot of their core people, so they likely came in with experience, maybe existing networks.
They weren't starting from scratch.
Not at all. And they were actually the first group to set up a public data leak site on the regular internet, a big move to pressure victims.
And technically they were using Rust. That seems kind of notable.
It is. Using Rust suggests, a move towards more modern programming languages, potentially harder to analyze, harder for standard security tools to pick up.
Okay, so how do they usually get in and operate?
Typically, the initial way in is compromised credentials, stolen logins. Then they often go after Active Directory. That's the heart of user management in many organizations.
Right. Control Active Directory, control the network.
Pretty much. They use things like Windows Task Scheduler, often with malicious group policy objects, to spread the ransomware. And tools like PowerShell, even Cobalt Strike.
Which is actually a legit security tool, right?
Yeah, used for penetration testing. So they're hiding in plain sight, using tools that might already be there or even allow listed.
Smart in a criminal way. And they try hard to cover their tracks.
Oh, yeah. They use allow listed apps sometimes, clear system logs, use encrypted chat, even stuff their malware with junk code to confuse antivirus. Very focused on evasion.
And their targets have been pretty high profile.
Definitely. MGM Resorts, Reddit. And the really big one recently was Change Healthcare. That caused massive disruption, especially to prescription services in the U.S.
And Change Healthcare reportedly paid a huge ransom.
Reports say $22 million, which is significant.
And then, not long after that payment, Black Cat just disappeared.
Seemingly, yeah. In March 2024, there was that law enforcement disruption. Back in December 2023, website seizure, a decryption tool released.
Which must have hurt them.
It did help some victims, for sure. But the timing of their apparent exit right after that huge Change Healthcare payout makes you wonder if it was maybe an exit scam.
Take the money and run.
It's a very strong possibility. Was it just law enforcement pressure, or was it a planned cash out? Hard to say for sure.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Phobos and 8base. Phobos has been around a bit longer.
Yeah, since about 2019. Also RAS, kind of an evolution from the older Dharma or Crisis ransomware. 8base is newer, maybe 2022. Initially linked to Ransom House, but mostly uses a customized version of Phobos now.
So, related but distinct. What are their main tactics?
Well, they both tried to disable security software, delete backups, standard ransomware playbook stuff to make recovery harder. Phobos often gets in via RDP, remote desktop.
Always a weak spot if not secured.
Exactly. Or phishing. 8base uses phishing too, but also initial access brokers, people who just sell access to networks and malware like SmokeLoader.
And 8base uses something called System BC.
Right, to mask their command and control traffic. Makes it harder to track their communications back.
And how do they handle the encryption and payment part?
Phobos uses AES 256 and RSA 1024, keys hard-coded in the malware. 8base uses AES 256 CBC. For payments, Phobos seems to ask for less on average, maybe around $18,000, $19,000.
Whereas 8base goes for public shaming on their leak site.
Yeah, the Space Bear site, they negotiate typically over email or telegram, probably aiming for bigger payouts.
But law enforcement hit them back recently, February 2025.
Yes, a significant operation. Arrests in Thailand linked to 8base, their leak site was taken down. Shows that international cooperation is happening and having an impact.
And the sources really laid out Phobos evasion techniques in detail. It's quite the list.
It really is. Disabling firewalls, antivirus, killing backups, living off the land using built-in tools, hiding traffic with System BC, checking language settings to avoid certain regions.
Geographic avoidance, huh?
Yeah. Trying low-profile encryption, stealing credentials with Mimikatz, mapping networks with Bloodhound, then sneaking data out using cloud storage like Mega.io or file transfer tools like WinSCP, often zipping it up first.
It's like a step-by-step guide for advanced attacks.
Pretty much. And comparing Phobos to Dharma really shows the evolution. The RAAS model, targeting critical infrastructure, more standardized key management, it's a more scalable threat.
Okay, let's talk about Clop. Russian group, active since 2019, known for big demands and leaking data.
That's them. They hit some big names. BBC, British Airways, they got a lot of attention for exploiting that Moviet file transfer vulnerability.
Ah, the Moviet hack. That was huge.
It was. Their typical approach involves adding that Kyle AP extension to files, often targeting whole networks through Active Directory, brute forcing logins, or exploiting software bugs like Moviet.
And their ransom demands are all over the place.
Yeah, varies a lot. Depends on the victim size, revenue, the data they got, how much damage they caused, but generally known for demanding large sums.
Makes sense from their perspective.
It's a criminal business calculation. They set deadlines, pressure victims, sometimes even contact executives or the media.
And they hit a wide range of industries.
Very broad. Airlines, industrial sector hit hard. But also retail, consulting, education, government, finance, healthcare, pretty much anyone with valuable data or who can't afford downtime.
How do they usually get that first foothold? Mostly exploiting vulnerabilities.
That seems to be a major route, especially with things like Moviet. Phishing is probably in their toolbox too, though maybe less documented in these specific sources.
And once they're in,
They move laterally, RDP attacks, Cobalt strike again for control, internal scanning, exploiting 0 days if they find them.
0 days! Vulnerabilities without a patch yet. Nasty.
Exactly. Which just hammers home the need for strong layered defenses. Robust security tools, yes, but also employee training, good offline backups, access controls, network segmentation.
Regular vulnerability checks.
Absolutely. And having an instant response plan ready before you need it. All those fundamentals.
Right. Okay, let's pivot to a different type of group. Scattered Spider, also known as UNC 39444 Scatter Swine, active since mid-2022. And surprisingly, based in the US, UK, with younger members.
Yeah, that profile is definitely interesting. What really marks them is their focus on the human element. Less about pure technical exploits, more about social engineering.
Like what kind of techniques?
SIM swapping is a big one, tricking phone companies to take over a number. MFA fatigue attacks, just spamming authentication requests until someone clicks approve.
Annoyance factor leading to a security breach.
Pretty much. Plus standard phishing via SMS or Telegram. They do use some technical exploits too, like older Windows vulnerabilities, but the social engineering is key.
And they hit Caesars, MGM, using that social engineering.
Reportedly, yes. Big breaches, also Reddit, Twilio, and interestingly, they even teamed up with Black Cat PHV sometimes to deploy the actual ransomware.
So collaboration between these different types of cybercrime actors.
Exactly. It shows how specialized roles can develop. Scattered Spider is great at getting in, maybe Black Cat handles the encryption and extortion. And it highlights that tech isn't always the weak link. People are often easier targets.
Okay, let's shift again, this time to nation states. Iran and APT-42.
All right, APT-42 is seen as linked to the IRGC, Iran's Revolutionary Guard. They're primarily focused on cyber espionage, stealing credentials, gathering intelligence, targeted phishing.
And they allegedly went after the Trump campaign.
There was one reported incident, yeah. aimed at intel gathering, maybe influence operations.
But it seems Iran has also been on the receiving end of cyber attack.
Definitely. Sources mention retaliatory attacks hitting Iranian infrastructure, ATMs, power grids. It shows cyber capabilities flow both ways and highlight potential defensive weaknesses. It's a constant back and forth.
And APT-42 isn't working alone. They have alliances.
They operate within a network. Connections to the Iranian government, other Iranian APT groups, pro-Iranian hacktivists, potentially regional allies with shared interests, maybe even proxy groups. It's complex.
Iran's history in cyber includes attacks like Shamoon, but also being victims like with Stuxnet.
Exactly. It underscores that pretty much every nation is both playing offense and defense in the cyber domain. It's a global reality.
Which brings us to maybe the newest frontier, AI-enabled crime. This feels like it's accelerating fast.
It really is. AI is powerful, and that power cuts both ways. For criminals, it means automating attacks, scaling them up massively.
How else are they using it?
Augmenting existing crimes, think much more convincing phishing emails or deepfakes for scams. Making harmful content like CSAM generation easier, unfortunately. Spreading AI tools to more criminal groups.
And even criminal innovation, like specific AI tools for crime.
Yeah, things like WormGPT, FraudGPT are emerging tools explicitly designed for malicious uses. Plus, AI is really good at exploiting those human vulnerabilities we talked about. And then there's exploiting weaknesses in AI models themselves or even attacking the AI systems directly.
It's changing the game.
It really is.
Yeah.
Which is why there's this growing call for mandatory AI incident reporting. We need a standardized way to track these things.
What would be the benefit of that?
Consistent data, better tracking of trends, more research, filling knowledge gaps, building a framework for safety, revealing patterns, accurately assessing the impact. It's foundational, really.
So policy ideas like standard reporting formats, maybe an independent investigation agency.
Yeah, like the NTSB for plane crashes, but for major AI incidents. Those seem like sensible steps to get ahead of this.
Okay, let's look at some good news now. Operation Moonlander. A big takedown.
A very significant one. International effort, U.S., Netherlands, Thailand working together. They dismantled the anti-proxy and 5-SOX botnets.
Botnets. Networks of infected computers.
In this case, mostly older routers, infected with the Moon malware. These things were running for 2 decades, apparently made something like $46 million selling proxy access to other criminals.
Wow. And they indicted people.
4 individuals, Russian and Kazakhstani nationals, indicted in the U.S. It really shows the power of international cooperation and also the danger lurking in old unpatched devices.
So the advice is, replace old routers, patch everything, disable remote admin if you don't need it.
Strong passwords, reboot regularly, keep an eye out for weird behavior. Basic cyber hygiene, but crucial.
And Moonlander is part of a trend. More successful takedowns.
Seems like it. We've seen RCKS, Cyclops Blink, 911S5 also disrupted recently. Law enforcement is definitely getting better at coordinating these complex international operations.
Which leads to the broader picture of law enforcement actions in 2024, continuing into 2025. Looks like a lot is happening globally.
A real uptick in coordinated efforts. Operation Red Card in Africa, run by Interpol, targeting mobile banking and other scams. Operation Kronos hitting Lockbit hard infrastructure, keys, arrests, exposing their lies about deleting data.
Operation Talent, too, against stolen credential sites.
Yeah, Europol coordinating that one. Took down sites like Cracked, Nulled, Stark RDP, Celix. Then Operation Serengeti, another Interpol effort in Africa. Lots of arrests for ransomware, BEC, extortion.
And the THECOM takedowns, linked to groups like LAPS.
Right, Canada, US, UK involved there. Hitting infrastructure tied to LAPS2, Scattered Spider, Octo Tempest, plus disruptions of dark web markets like Nemesis, LabHost, Atrix.
It feels like a concerted pushback.
It does. And then there's the case of US DoD, the Brazilian hacker, breached US DoD data, national public data, InfraGard, huge impact from one person. Later unmasked by CrowdStrike, formed his own group SparrowCorp. Just shows the global nature and individual impact potential.
Indeed. Okay, well, one more thank you to our sponsor, www.breached.company.
So pulling it all together from this deep dive, the cyber threat landscape is, well, complicated. And it's constantly changing. Ransomware is still a huge piece of that puzzle, evolving even as major groups get disrupted.
Yeah, that fragmentation is key. And the rise of AI-enabled crime is definitely something to watch. That feels like it could be a major force multiplier for attackers. Plus, state-sponsored stuff isn't going away.
But on the positive side, that international law enforcement cooperation really seems to be gaining traction. We're seeing real successes, arrests, disruptions. It's not just reactive anymore.
And some surprising things definitely stood out. The age profile of scattered spider members, for one.
Yeah, quite young for that level of activity. And the Black Cat situation, that potential exit scam after the Change healthcare payment, is fascinating. Plus, the sheer scale of the USDAD breaches by one person really highlights the potential damage.
So for you listening, the big message here is really about staying informed, knowing what threats are out there, and taking those protective steps. We talked about the patching, the backups, the awareness training. They really do matter.
Absolutely. Which kind of leads to a final thought, maybe something for you to chew on. With attacks getting so much more sophisticated, automated with AI, and lines blurring between crime and state actions, how does our whole understanding of cyber conflict, cybercrime, need to change?
That's a big question. And what's the role of individuals, of us, in that shifting landscape? How do we navigate it?
Exactly. Definitely something to think about as we all try to stay secure in this increasingly complex digital world.